I think you're probably going to see this backfire politically on the Democrats, and they're going to regret it.
I mean, George, I will say, I have heard from some people who really don't want to see Trump get elected in the Republican Party who are concerned that this particular case is just going to drive additional enthusiasm for the former president. I'm interested you respond to that, and you got your face in your hands. What do you got to say to Scott?
I have to say, look, Scott's lying, and that's the problem with the Republican Party. It is continually addicted to lies.
Wait a minute.
I love this takedown by Lincoln Project member George Conway of CNN right-wing apologist Scott Jennings. Let's get right into it.
This verdict dropped, you said his other criminal cases involve lies about the 2016 election, about the military secrets he stole, but the alleged lies in the People v. Trump strike at the core of his moral putrescence, and Trump knows it. What do you make of the verdict that we saw here today? And also David Frum's comments, considering the way this sits in our nation's consciousness and the way it stacks up against some of the other things that Donald Trump is accused of doing.
Yeah, well, I actually agreed with everything that David said. And in terms of this verdict, the only thing that really I was surprised by the fact that so many people were surprised. I was in that courtroom for a number of the days. I read the transcript. I followed along very closely, and this case was never, ever close. It wasn't. There was really no defense. The only defense was that Michael Cohen lied on some other occasions, but on the things that he testified to about Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal and the catch and kill scheme with the National Enquirer, all that was corroborated many, many times over by documents. So I'm just surprised at how many people were kind of unwilling to accept this case. That said, I think that this case really does capture Donald Trump in a way. It's where he started. He's been a criminal his entire life, and he cannot help himself. If you go out there and you see his son and him all claiming that they're the victims of some mastermind scheme by President Biden. It's just silly and ridiculous, and Marco Rubio should be ashamed. If you don't want to be found guilty of falsifying business records as a felony, don't sleep with the porn star. Don't lie about it. Don't pay her off. Don't cover up the payoff. Don't cover off the payoff in the middle of a presidential campaign where you're making an illegal contribution, and don't gross the guy up for taxes who used as the front man. If you don't want to be held liable for rape like Donald Trump has, don't grab the woman's genitalia. If you don't want to be held liable for defaming the woman that you raped, don't keep lying about what you did and calling her a nut job. If you don't want to be indicted for overthrowing the Constitution, don't start a self-coup. If you don't want to be indicted for stealing classified documents and obstructing justice, don't take the classified documents. When the government asks for it back, give them back. If the FBI serves you with a search warrant, don't hide the documents, and don't lie about it, and don't have your lawyers lie about it. This isn't that hard. Donald Trump is not the victim here. Donald Trump does all of these things to himself. And I agree with David. Once upon a time, the Republican Party was the party not just of anti-hippies, but of personal responsibility and of law and order. What party? Where is that party? Here, no one's willing to hold, in the Republican Party, is willing to hold Donald Trump to account for his crimes that aren't really even in dispute. And no one is willing to call him out and said he's going to get the nomination. That's just insane, and it just shows the degree of moral rot we have on the conservative side of politics today.
Scott Jennings, I think this is for you. Where is that party?
Well, I disagree with a number of things George said, of course. He's talking about these obvious crimes that were committed. He's talking about the obvious crimes that were supposedly committed, but that's the core of what a lot of decidedly non-MAGA Republicans are mad about, is that there is no underlying crime. I looked at the statement from Maine Senator Susan Collins, who I think encapsulated it perfectly. She said this was a partisan prosecutor who promised to get Trump And that's what he did. Not promise to go after the law, but he promised to go after Donald Trump. And so the issue is here, what is the crime? He's never been indicted for or convicted of the campaign finance theory at the core of this case. And so Republicans are wondering today, you know, what do you have to do to build a defense against something you've never been convicted of in the first place? I'll tell you, the mood in the party, if you're sort of looking for a generalized attitude, reminds me a little bit about the Kavanaugh period. You go back to the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, 2018. I remember that period being the MAGA people were mad, the non-MAGA, the anti-Trump, the pro-Trump. Every wing of the party was vibratingly angry about what was being done to Kavanaugh. I feel and sense that the same thing is happening today, which is why I think you're probably going to see this backfire politically on the Democrats, and they're going to regret it.
I mean, George, I will say, I have heard from some people who really don't want to see Trump get elected in the Republican Party who are concerned that this particular case is just going to drive additional enthusiasm for the former president. I'm interested in you to respond to that, and you got your face in your hands. What do you got to say to Scott?
I have to say, Scott's lying, and that's the problem with the Republican Party. It is continually addicted to lies.
Wait a minute. What am I lying
You're
about?
Lying. You're lying, Scott. You're lying about the law. You're lying about what the jury was charged to find. They don't have to find an underlying crime. They had to find the intent to cover up an underlying crime. And the underlying crime was pretty obvious.
What was the crime?
You ran for public office, Scott. You ran for public office, Scott. You know you can't take money from somebody and reimburse them if it's a campaign expense.
I've never run for
damn
public
well.
office.
And okay, fine. Well, you're close enough. You're involved in politics to know that. Okay, so that's the problem with the Republican Party, is that they are suffused with lies. I don't know why this network is paying Scott to say those lies.
Whoa,
on his
okay.
morning show.
Let's not go there, George. Please, let's not go there.
No,
okay.
we should go there.
Scott is our colleague, and we're going to treat him respectfully as such. Continue.
Well, he shouldn't lie.
Here's my question: If it is an obvious crime, why did the Department of Justice and the Federal Election Commission take a pass on it?
Well, the Federal
They
Election
should have
Commission,
prosecuted. It should have been prosecuted on January 21, 2021.
Let's let David jump in.
We all know
this
the
is the
federal
thing
election-
about Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been let off. He should have been indicted for it. And the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump isn't being treated specially.
George and Scott, hold on, please. David, jump in.
We all know the Federal Election Commission is a broken and paralyzed institution. It requires a majority. It's got equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats. It requires a majority to act, and it's not acted on anything for a decade because it is broken. And one of the reasons that things are ending up in the criminal justice system is because the internal political system has been sabotaged by the people who then complain that the criminal justice system is the wrong remedy. You know, I want to pick up something else Scott said. This has become an important Republican talking point that Alvin Bragg vowed to punish Donald Trump. That doesn't seem to be true. People are looking at the record to say, where is this promise that you're talking about? And I wonder, maybe they've mistaken Alvin Bragg for Letitia James, the New York State Attorney General, who did make that promise. But Bragg actually was the person who declined to bring a criminal action based on the civil frauds that then won verdicts of $500 million. But he's been actually quite cautious, not as cautious as Merrick Garland, but still quite cautious. He was not someone who was chomping at the bit to get this president.
Scott?
George Conway, a prominent conservative lawyer and vocal critic of former President Donald Trump, recently appeared on CNN to discuss Trump's guilty verdict in the criminal hush money case. During the heated exchange, Conway clashed with Republican commentator Scott Jennings, accusing him of lying about the law and the jury's findings. Conway vehemently defended the jury's decision, stating that they had to find intent to cover up an underlying crime, not necessarily an underlying crime itself. He criticized Jennings and the Republican Party for being addicted to lies, and questioned why CNN employed Jennings as a contributor. The debate highlighted the deep divisions within the Republican Party over Trump's legal troubles. While Jennings suggested the verdict could backfire politically on Democrats, Conway emphasized the gravity of a former president being found guilty of a crime. Conway has been a long-standing critic of Trump, previously expressing concerns about the former president's mental state and supporting the impeachment inquiry. His criticism has often put him at odds with his wife, Anne Conway, who served as a top counselor to Trump. The heated exchange on CNN underscored the ongoing tensions surrounding Trump's legal battles and the polarizing nature of the former president's legacy within the Republican Party.